So yeah, I just want to get started and say hello to
Hello.
everybody who's
Oh,
watching. Yeah, and to you. And if you want to just tell us why you're here on Substack, and we can go from there.
well, I'm here because originally I was going to write a novel and I kind of started that. I got into the outline and character development and all of those kind of things, but then life kept getting in the way. So I kept putting it to the side, picking it back up, putting it to the side again. Finally, I just put it to the side and I said, I can't do this right now, which we can get into later. But then I decided to write short form just to keep the writing muscle going. And I was trying to decide between Substack and Patreon. I actually was on Patreon first, and it was kind of quiet over there. And I did more research on Substack and found out that it really had a strong community, a lot of support, writers supporting writers. And I thought, you know what, that's where I need to go. So I ended up on Substack like 2 posts later, and that was in July. So here I am, and I'm loving it because the community is even more than I would have expected.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not too far behind you. Very similar in the sense that I joined Substack in August, and I'm coming from the point of view of I've always been a writer. I've been a creative writer my whole life. And my son, Bray, he's my biggest inspiration for being
Mhm.
here in this moment. And basically, long story short, 1 year ago, Braden was in the hospital. He has a rare genetic disorder
Mhm.
that causes seizures and makes him prone to different things. And unfortunately, he had seizures right at the same time he had an infection. He was in the
Oh
hospital for
gosh.
20 he was in the hospital for 28 days, but he pulled through because he's a warrior and he's a fighter, and he might not be able to talk, he might not be able to walk. He has a lot of challenges, but you know what? He is my biggest inspiration and my biggest hero. And the
Aw.
reason I'm here on Substack is basically sharing his story with more people because I feel like caregiving is something we'll get into. I feel like
Mhm.
caregiving is so underrepresented in the literary world, in the literary space. And I feel like I have this experience and ability to really share Bravery's story and his smile and my perspective as his dad going through all of this, going through that daily grind and, living to tell the tale. So I feel like
Right.
we're both here on Substack to tell our genuine truths, to tell our
Definitely.
genuine stories. I feel like we've grown up, in that way of, we pick ourselves up by the bootstraps and figure it out. And I feel
My
like
dad
that's
used
what
to
we're
say,
doing.
"Buck up, just buck up." If I had a tear in my
Yeah,
eye, just buck up. Come on,
yeah,
walk the straight and
exactly.
narrow. Learn by my mistakes.
It's funny. It's funny because my dad said, if I could learn to write, I'll always have a job. And
Yeah.
you know what? Because he was an engineer. And because he was an engineer, nobody could write. They couldn't even write their day planning organizers back in the day. So he always told me that. He's like, son, if you can write, you'll always have a job. And luckily, I've been
That's very good advice.
luckily I've been gainfully employed, and he was right about that. But poetry is really my sweet spot in terms of expressing my most vulnerable emotions. So I wanted to talk to you about one of your posts. You had an amazing post. This is how I got introduced to you at Lynn J. Broderick on Substack. You had a great post about writing in a sea of writers, writing while the market is saturated. Can you
Hmm.
just go into that post a little bit and explain that story?
Well, when I first started Substack, one of my friends said, "Oh my God, there's just so many writers. Why are you doing this?" But then rewind to when I was a little girl and my mom asked me, "What did I want to be when I grow up?" And I said, "I want to be a writer." And she's an avid novel reader. Like she could read multiple novels in 1 week. I remember her
Wow.
doing that most of her time. No offense, mom, if you're watching, which I'm sure she's not. But anyway, um, So she had said to me, why would you want to write? There's so many writers in the world. And it stuck with me forever. I'm going to be 61 in a matter of weeks, and I still have that in the back of my brain. And of course, being here on Substack, you realize everybody and their brother is writing. And this is only one of many platforms, and there's people all over the world writing, writing, writing. I didn't realize, I don't know, I just never had been in this environment. So I had to ask myself what in the world I'm doing here. And that's what spawned that post. But why I write is because that's what I've done for so long.
Hmm.
I started journaling from the time I could write, and I asked for a diary for Christmas. It was this little diary with tiny little flowers on it. I still remember, unfortunately, I got rid of all my journals. I don't know what the heck I was thinking, but this thing had a lock on it as well. And I was writing in there every day in pencil for some reason. But I did that for many, many years. And then writing was still like in my career. I was in advertising. Then
Hmm.
when I raised my son, I started my own blog, an like environmental awareness blog, and that led to other writing gigs. And then I had to get a new job, or a real job, I should say, because I got divorced. So I needed benefits and all of that. And so I kind of put the writing to the side, but it was always something I wanted to do. In fact, when I was raising my son, I actually wrote a novel, and it was a stack of papers like this tall, double
Wow.
spaced, of course. I lost it
Oh,
because that was in the day of no iCloud, and it was
yeah.
on a computer here, it was on a computer over there, it was on multiple little floppy disks. I don't know what the hell happened, and there's a whole story behind. Consciously, I kind of wanted to throw it out anyway for an embarrassing thing that happened when somebody in my family read it, and then I was mortified, and I was like, "Oh, hell with this." So, once I got laid off after COVID, and I was with my now
Hmm.
husband, he encouraged me to do what I wanted to do with my writing. I didn't do it right
That's
away.
awesome. Hmm.
I had to cut through layers of procrastination. Yes, I wanted to write a novel, but I was kind of like I was stuck. I was in an empty nest situation. Laid off. I'd always had something going on, and then I was kind of
Hmm.
stuck. Finally got back into working on the novel, and then my dad had a stroke. That
Hmm.
was about 3 or 4 years ago. Then
Hmm.
I got used to that, started writing again. Then he fell. He broke his hip. So
Hmm.
then there was rehab. And my mom was around, kind of the caretaker. But it's my father. And of course, you get involved, you get emotional, all of those things. And then I ended up starting again. Then he ended up having another stroke, which completely debilitated him. He ended up in the nursing home. That was last November. And then I stopped writing altogether. I'm like, I couldn't even do it. My dad couldn't
Hmm.
speak. He couldn't feed himself. He couldn't move. He needed a lift to for them to bathe him, and it was
Yeah.
just, at that point, there's no dignity. So, but I just was not in a mode to start the novel again. That wasn't going to happen. And then he
Hmm.
passed away in April, and then I had to write his obituary,
Oh.
and I wrote a beautiful obituary, and then I had to go through all these photos, old photos, and I was seeing him at all
Hmm.
these different ages. That was something I procrastinated too, but we had a celebration of life in May, so I had to do it. And
Yep.
after that was over and I organized the whole thing, I was inspired to write again. The last
Mm.
thing I ever thought that I was going to be doing that soon after my dad passed away was to start writing again, but it happened. It just did. And that what I was writing was a tribute to him, and also how he was really. I'm sorry, I'm getting into like I'm
No,
going off
no, go.
on a tangent.
No, no, that's okay.
I'm the queen of non sequiturs and tangents.
That's fine.
So anyway, but so this whole thing I start writing, and it turned into a poem, which I don't even write poetry.
Hmm.
And I decided, okay, I'm not going to go back to the novel because, yes, my dad died. That was all behind me. There was still, of course, all the grief. I mean, writing that poem, again, why I write, it's processing life and healing. And
Hmm.
also, it's the connection with other people, which, that's the other piece of it. I love to share these things with other people and get their reaction, but also it's about that connection and people saying, "Oh, I know how you're feeling," or, getting that support or whatever it might be. And I wrote that and then I published it on Substack.
Yeah.
But it's my way of getting my feelings out there and getting it out of here and onto
Hmm.
paper is part of the healing process for me. Not everybody processes things that way, but that's how I think my years of journaling really was also helpful in just, getting through different problems, writing it down and just getting it out of your brain.
Yeah.
So
Well, I think that,
that's it in a
yeah,
nutshell, I guess.
I was going to say the reason we're even here talking right now, and the reason I think our work has resonated with each other and some of the other people we've seen on Substack in familiar circles, is that human connection.
Right.
And whether it's losing that human connection or caring for someone you love who can't care for themselves, which is something I'm very familiar with on the other
Hmm.
side of the spectrum. So I think you're just coming from such a honest place with your work where it resonates with so many people because
Right.
we talked about this when we were preparing for the show, but basically there are so many people that are caregivers that are 40 to 65 years old. We are in the prime of
Right.
our lives and we're juggling whether it's parenting or being taking care of your parents. We're right in that middle area. And there's so many people I've connected with that have said, "Oh my God, what you wrote about your son, I'm going through something with my dad. I'm going through something
Right.
with my mom." And a lot of it is resonating because, I mean, I don't know any other way of parenting because Braden was born this way.
Hmm.
And in a lot of ways, he might be the smartest person in the room because he's protected, he's safe. His smile is literal pure innocence on this planet.
Hmm.
So everything he does is literally visceral and his honest emotion, right? So I don't know any other way he might have been. And a long time ago, I let that go. I had to for my own sanity.
Right.
Like,
Right.
okay, that's what he might have been. This is what he is. Let's embrace it. It
Hmm.
was either that or go on a drug bender in Mexico. Uh, but
Hmm.
I get so many responses from parents or people taking care of their parents like you are. And I think your work resonated with me so much because I see the pain that you went through with your dad and that grief that you experienced. And I feel it in my bones. And it makes me want to reach out and say, you know what, Lynn, you
Uh-oh, you froze up.
can you see me now?
Oh, there we go. Yeah, there we are.
Okay.
Sorry.
I no, I've had people, help me in my path over the past 12 years as a caregiver. And I want to reach out to as many people as I possibly can. I just let them know you are not alone, whether it's a
Right.
good day, whether it's a bad day, let's do this together. And I feel
Well, and
like,
I was inspired by
yeah.
what you were writing about your situation and your son and the fact that he wasn't and isn't able to speak. And I was so brokenhearted when
Mhm.
my husband put tissues around here somewhere, but I hope I'm not going to cry. But when he had that last stroke, he,
Mhm.
that night it happened and he's in the bed and he's like himself. But then he tried to say something and he couldn't. And he's like, up, up, up. And he thought it was kind of funny at the time. And we didn't know that he would not be able, like, he could say a couple things, but I just know that my dad lived to be 91 years old.
Mhm.
So I can appreciate where you're coming from. And it was inspiring to me because, you feel bad and you feel sorry for yourself. I felt so bad and brokenhearted that my dad couldn't like say his last words to me. I don't know what
Hmm.
those would have been.
Yeah. Hmm.
But
Yeah, that's
anyway,
tough. No,
but
I know. Listen.
you've got a child that, I mean, my son was he talked he was babbling from the age of like baby. And we were
Yeah, yeah,
always
yeah.
wondering, I
No,
wonder
of
what he's
course.
saying here. I wish he was able to form the
Yeah.
words because he's going to be
Hmm.
this talker. And he spoke, and it's like it makes you see somebody else's perspective, gives you
Hmm.
perspective for your own situation. Like, thank God I had my dad for the majority of my
Hmm.
life in good health. And yeah, I missed out on that last part of like what he might have said. He couldn't write, it was all scribbles. I tried that,
Yeah. Hmm.
so, and then having a son who's healthy, he's far away in California. I don't see him. Like, it's like, damn, he's probably never moving back to Illinois. So it breaks my heart. That breaks my heart. But
Yeah.
he's thriving and happy. And, and Bray Bray seems like a happy guy. And, we all
Hmm.
have our own situations. So I think that's kind of that's the connection part that is so profound, really, here on
Yeah.
Substack.
Yeah. And you know what? I've been so inspired by so many writers on Substack. Like we've had so many things where I'll just scroll through and I'm not doom scrolling. I'm actually scrolling because I'm inspired. Uh, the first
Exactly.
the first Substack live I did was with Joe Nichols, and he wrote this amazing piece called Brass. And it was this awesome story about the brass of a doorknob and the secrets that it keeps. And I
Oh,
was like
interesting.
blown away by the quality of the writing. And then he invites me to talk to him. And then I see your piece. And then I'm like, hey, Lynn, let's go live. And you're like, sure, why not? Let's do it.
Well, I
So
wasn't originally sure why not, was I? No,
you listen,
I almost did not do it, but then somebody
I
else
knew you
asked me to
would,
do it. I'm like, I guess I got to do this stuff. Oh,
I
well.
knew you would come on. I knew you would come on. So let's transition to one of your other posts. You did another post, and this is now going back a little bit of when you were a kid, and you wrote another post that caught my attention called Sugar, essentially about the things that we consumed as kids in the 80s and 90s. But basically,
Well,
um,
I'm a bit older than you, so
that's
I'm
true, 70s,
talking,
80s, and 90s.
well, I was born
Um,
in 1964.
okay, okay.
I'm
So if you
actually the
want to,
very tail end of baby boomer, but I like to call myself a Gen Xer because it
it's
sounds
funny
cooler.
because I'm at the tail end of Gen X, and I kind of call
Oh,
myself a Xennial.
oh,
Like the
that's
in
cool. Okay.
between. Yeah.
I'm an X
All right.
boomer.
Yeah. There you go. So yeah, talk about sugar for a little bit, because I know you're in today's day and age, you're very health conscious and everything. But if you want to go into that a little bit, that'll be I think a good story for our audience.
Yeah, well, the title is actually Sugar. That'd be a really cool title, actually, just Sugar with
Yeah.
exclamation marks and stuff like that. No, it's my first love was sugar,
Yeah.
and then I don't know what else it said, but it. My mom at one point told me, and I don't know if she was kidding or not, but she said that she fed me sugar water occasionally instead of formula. I don't know if it's true, and she doesn't remember anymore. So, um, maybe it is true if they were trying to save a couple bucks, but I was actually, but sugar was just there. I specifically, and not as much when I remember climbing up on the counter, having to climb up on the counter. I was that little when it happened, and getting a spoonful of sugar, like a big, like big round spoon of sugar right from the sugar container. It was a glass container with a little lid. And
Hmm.
then also in that same cabinet was vanilla. So I liked the taste of that too. So then I'd take a spoonful of vanilla too. So it's the combination. I don't know if that could have been a sign of early alcoholism, But my mom also used to get these candies. Remember those? Did you have those candies? It was like a big receipt of little dots of sugar, different colors.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember those.
I don't remember what those were called, but I found that cabinet and where those were hidden too. So I would just like, but then when we moved, they moved us out to the country, which is another thing I wrote about. Of course, I'm going to write about everything. But when we moved there, it was very isolating. So I think that I just started leaning more into sugar because I was kind of lonely and isolated.
Yeah. Of course.
I came from the suburbs where I could ride my bike to a friend's or even walk down a block to somebody's house to play with. And then we're out in the country, and it wasn't like my mom was really excited to drive me to people's houses to play with other kids. Plus, we had a lot
Yeah.
of responsibilities now. So, and my older brother, he didn't want to hang out with me. You know, I was 9 when we moved there. My
hmm
younger brother was little, kindergarten. So I just turned to sugar. And there was a lot of it available in our house. And I didn't have to go to the sugar jar because there were, sugary cereals for breakfast. Lucky
Yeah.
Charms, Count Chocula was
hmm
my favorite, Quisp, Sugar Snaps, you name it, we had it. Frosted Flakes, those were great. And that was my breakfast, sugar or
Yeah.
pancakes with a lot of syrup. There were cookies, there was candy, there was, you know, everything. I'd be asked, what do you want for lunch? I had on more than one occasion, literally, Wonder Bread with butter and sugar on it. That's what I got in my lunch bag because I asked for it, so I got it.
Yeah.
I guess
Well,
my parents didn't have any idea about health and what is good
mhm,
for children.
of course.
And then I'm not brushing my teeth after lunch at
Yeah.
school, or it would be Jif and Fluffernutter
Jif, Jif toothpaste.
and a ho-ho
Um,
or a Twinkie for
so yeah,
dessert.
the reason I brought up sugar is, I feel like anybody who grew up, whether, I know you're a little older than me, but I also grew up before the internet was big. So I feel like a
Mhm.
lot of people have the very similar childhoods from the 60s through to the 90s before the internet really took over. And I remember
Except
when
for
I was
my current husband and my ex-husband, they didn't have all that sugar around. So anyway, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Well, when I was a kid, I'll never forget this. I was maybe 7 years old, and it was like in the 80s, and my mom was making like pancakes and bacon. And I'll just never forget your post reminded me of this, that I ate a pound of bacon without even realizing it before breakfast, and then they were
Oh my
wondering where all the
God.
bacon went, and I had little bacon crumbs in my teeth, and I'm like, "Oh, what
That's
happened to the
hilarious.
bacon?"
Oh my
So
God.
it might not have been, it was more salt for me at that
Hmm.
particular day. But I mean, I grew up with Fruit Loops. I grew up with all that stuff. Like you were mentioning, the Ho-Hos and the Twinkies and the Ring Dings. And it's funny because that evolution
Ringdings.
of,
Oh yeah, the ringdings.
yeah, yeah, the hostess foods. But it's funny how we grew up with like those kind of laissez-faire attitudes towards things like that. And then here we are in this generation of parenting where, I mean, we talked about this a little bit before we got on the air, but about the helicopter parents that are around now and how crazy different it is. And you
Yeah.
can't ride your bike to a friend's house anymore, without, alarm bells going off. So, it's interesting how we grew up in that culture.
Yeah.
And
Total hands
then
off.
I feel like people take it for granted today. And if anybody here who's watching or listening, I just want them to know that, it's okay to go outside, it's okay to unplug, not right this second, but no,
No, not
no,
now,
but it's
please.
it, it's okay to, really just look up at the stars and not worry about, everything being planned out. And I think Substack is a metaphor for this. Like, the way I'm on Substack anyway, I joined with zero following. I joined on a whim. I wanted to just share Braden's story. And all of a sudden, I'm engaging with all these people. It's like meeting people in the neighborhood. It's like,
Hmm.
oh, yeah, I'm Chris from down the street. Oh, you want to
I know
hang
that's
out?
pretty
And
cool, isn't it?
yeah, that's what I'm doing on something. Hey, it's Chris. You want to
Hmm.
hang out? oh, you write about caregiving? Oh, let's hang out. So, just kind of funny. Like, I feel like that early childhood vibe of like when we were kids,
Yeah,
being
you just
able
could go
to,
knock on somebody's door. You didn't have to call first or text first or well, who
yeah,
even hangs out anymore? Anybody? I don't know. Any kids?
exactly. So we're like embracing that attitude that we grew up with now in a healthy way
Right.
versus when, yeah, we're left to our own devices as a kid. Of course, you're going to go into the sugar cabinet, and of course,
You're frozen on me. Maybe I'm not.
oh,
I don't know if I'm frozen on you. Wait,
no, I'm
there you
good.
are.
Can you? Yeah, no worries. Hey, we're doing it. We're doing it live, people. So, that's my
This
cue
is
to
what happens.
reset. That's my cue to reset. This is Typing It
Oh,
Real. I am Chris B. My Substack is Chris B. Writes. I'm with Lynn J. Broderick. You can find her at Lynn J. Broderick right here on Substack. And Lynn, is there anything you want to say to introduce yourself to people who just joined us?
what do you want me to do? I'm sorry that
If
broke
you
up a little.
if you just want to reintroduce yourself briefly to the people who just joined us in the last half hour.
Sure. Lynn J. Broderick. Blah. I can't say my own name, so never mind. Lynn Lynn J. Broderick. I live in
All
Northern
right.
Illinois, in case anybody cares, in the Midwest, and I'm writing here on Substack, writing memoirish stories. Um, and I like to hope that I have a sense of humor that comes through in my writing. And I just write what's on my mind.
Yeah, no, that's great. By the way, I am writing from Long Island, New York, so pardon my
Long
accent.
Island.
Long Island, New York, born and raised. Let's go Mets. Not a great end to their season. So I wanted to jump in now to some of the stuff that's really the core, I feel like, of who we are just as people and on Substack, sharing our most vulnerable moments. So you had a post essentially called "He Was Not Him in His Final Days," and I just want to touch on that a little bit. You mentioned some of the things you were doing with your dad, putting your dreams on hold and your writing on hold. So if you want to just go into that a little bit, and we can go from there.
You mean about what my dad's situation was or how I wrote the
Yeah,
poem?
yeah, basically, what your dad's situation was, how you were taking care of him, and then we
Yeah.
could go into the rest.
Yeah, my parents are both or well, not anymore, but living about an hour away. So my dad had a stroke in November. He had had a stroke before that in another situation which kind of made my writing on and off with my novel, but he ended up with his last stroke in December. Am I rehashing this again? Is that okay?
No,
Is that
that's
what you
okay.
want me
That's
to do?
okay. Some
Just in
people
case.
joined us late. Yeah, yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So, yeah, so, he had his last stroke in November. Well, who knows? There could have been more, but, which totally took him down, but not all the way. So then he was having to be in a nursing home where he got great care. Thankfully, it was an amazing nursing home. Thank goodness for those people. Those people are gems. And
Hmm.
so I didn't write during that time at all. And so I got back into it after he passed. What I forgot to say before was in February, we found out my mom she's 85. She just turned 85, stage 4 lung cancer,
Hmm.
which we only learned about because she had bronchitis
Hmm.
around Christmas time. And it's gone to her brain and her lymph nodes. And at the time, this was in February, so my dad's in a nursing home. We find out she's got this, and the doctor said she's got months, maybe weeks to live.
Hmm.
And I'm like, great, this is just add that right in there.
Yeah.
Um, and so we just thought she's going to die anytime. So that's kind of that other second shoe. The
Hmm.
other second shoe, that's a little redundant. The second shoe that's kind of hanging over my head, which is
Yeah, of
also
course.
why I kind of went back and forth on that whole idea of writing the novel, but instead, no, I'm going to stick to short form right now until
Hmm.
whenever that happens. We don't know how, we don't know when, because she's pretty much like the same. as she was back in February when we found out, living independently and all of that.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
I've taken over all the finances
Hmm.
because, and like she can't remember that I've told her how to turn her phone off. She's all caught up in like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I need a new phone. I can't turn it off. I'm like, that's
Yeah. It's
okay. You
tough.
don't need to turn it off. And oh, I got to get a new phone. No, mom, you just bought the phone in last year. It's a new phone. All this kind of stuff. So I'm kind of her. She's alone, living in a retirement kind of place. But I still have to be there for her. But
Of
anyway,
course. Yeah. No, I
so
mean, I get it.
anyway, so I did start writing again. Obviously, that's why I'm here. And the poem was not expected whatsoever because I do not write poetry. Heck, I could say I don't even like poetry, but I have I
That's
have
a
actually
bold statement, Lynn.
I've come to appreciate it because of people like you. And for God's sakes, I
Uh,
just wrote a poem. That was my first post here. And I don't know, I don't even believe that it happened. It's sort of like I started writing about my dad and his love of this lake that he grew up going
yep.
to in Wisconsin
Hmm.
called Pine Lake. And it was part of me too because we started going there and my dad built us a cottage. So we were spending summers there. And so it was such a part of him, and he'd go in and out before that last stroke, he'd go in and out of
Yeah.
like dementia moments, like, and oh,
Yeah.
he thought he was in Pine Lake, but that was always his happy place. Like he talked about
Hmm.
Pine Lake, like, but we lost that cottage. Another story, my aunt basically stole it from under us. But
Oh, geez.
that's a whole other story. But anyway, so that was lost to us physically, but never left us emotionally.
Got it.
It's such a peaceful lake, so serene, just beautiful. But that was a part of who he was. And there was a painting that one of his old friends going back to when he was a kid, I guess this kid came to visit them at this lake, their cottage at the
Hmm.
time, and he painted this painting of just like a
Oh,
little
wow.
piece of Pine Lake, the shore, some trees, and we've had that for all these years. It was in my parents' home. Then my mom's like, I don't need it. It was in my dad's, in their apartment, but my mom was cleaning stuff out. She didn't want it anymore she didn't have the connection to it.
Of
So
course.
I got it and I'm like, I'm putting this in dad's nursing home
Yeah,
room.
definitely.
So it hung
Hmm.
by his bed. And this poem was about his connection to Pine Lake and just how when he was dying that last
Hmm.
day,
Yep.
I kept telling him because he was not my dad that day. I mean, it didn't seem. It
Hmm.
was, I don't need to go into all the details. You can
Of
read the
course. Of course.
post. Go to
Yeah.
the post.
Well, I just want to say, so the reason I mention it is that's how you and I really connected. So
Yeah.
I responded to that. I literally like, do you remember the day you responded to Lynn's post? I remember it. So I responded to your post. I was very moved by it. And what did I do? I suggested a song. And
Yes.
the song I suggested was Monsters by James Blunt. I had no idea that it would spark the next wave, but I did say
Yeah,
in the post, brace yourself
you did.
before listening.
And this was just a couple weeks ago, really. And I'm
Yep.
like, yeah, I'm doing so good now. I'm past that grief. I'm moving along at a clip. Nothing was bothering me. I was like, I'm used to this whole thing. I got it under control. And then I watched that song. Boy, oh boy, I was not the same for days. That
I would
song really
apologize. I
impacted
would
me.
apologize. I would apologize, but you told me not to.
Right. Well, you didn't know. And you know
No,
what?
I
It's a
didn't.
song. You put something out there, you can't control other people's emotions. That's their problem. So I cried my eyes out watching that video
Hmm.
and I told my husband about it and I'm like, and he wanted to put it on the playlist. I'm like, I can never hear that song ever again in my entire life.
Yeah, I mean, it's
But
one of
yet I
those
listened to
songs.
it a little bit today because I did an
Yeah,
Instagram post for my, to promote this post, and I took
of
a
course.
clip from that song. So that's been playing in my head all day actually, but it didn't affect me that much or I mean, it affected me, but not like that. That was just like, oh my God, what the hell?
This is what I want to say about this is that song might be one of those powerful songs ever put on recording. And the video is even more emotional because his dad's in the video
Yes.
with him. And
Okay, I just
it
got chills.
is, yeah, it is. If anybody's going through something and you think you're alone, watch that video, but bring a lot of tissues. But
Yeah.
the reason I do like that is it evokes emotion that will bring something out of you that is human. It's human to have grief. It's human to struggle with that for a long time. It's human
Yeah.
to to and you wrote about this in your last post about
hmm
grief. It is something that never really goes away. But it is
Right, that's
something
what
that,
they say, which nobody told me till after my dad died, which I'm like,
yeah.
why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I just thought you get over it and you're done.
Mhm.
That's what my belief was, because I've never lost anybody quite that close to me before.
Yeah, I mean, it's also different when it's your parents versus,
Yeah.
listen, my grandfather, I loved my grandfather more than anything, and God bless him. He was a World War II veteran, and he lived to 100 years old.
Oh,
And
cool.
for 99 of those years, he was healthy. The last year
hmm
was a struggle, but he had 99 good ones.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a lot different. But when it's your parents, no matter how old they are, no matter what they're going through, that's always something that's obviously, if it's your parent or your child, it's always going to be just a little bit different.
Yeah. Totally.
So if you want to talk about what happened after you heard that song and your latest post, and kind of like the circle of Substack, if you will.
Yeah. Well, I cried, as I said, quite a bit. And I think I needed to dislodge that maybe. There's always going to be something it was kismet, let's say.
Yeah. Hmm.
And I knew that it was like, then I felt like I need to write about what happened to me. I didn't know how that was going to come out. But when I started writing it, guess what? It was a poem again.
For someone who hates poetry, Lynn, you're doing a good job.
Yeah, and it just kind of like, oh, how'd this happen? Because I was just kind of writing notes, and then I'm like, how'd that? So the first one's a poem about my dad. This one's about grief. Another poem. Who knew? So then I published it, and like somebody beyond the liminal, she, is it a she, he? I don't even know what. Oh, it's Vero is her name, I believe. I think it's Vero for Veronica. Sorry if you're listening. I just totally butchered that whole thing. But anyway, she wrote a poem in response to my poem, and it was absolutely beautiful what she wrote. And it put my poem to shame. And I'm like, did you just come up with that? Yes. My poem inspired her to write that. So I'm actually going to insert that into my post. It's in there though in the comments if you want to read it. And it's amazing. And
Yeah,
then
no, I
Christopher, uh, a
yeah.
guy that also subscribes to you, he commented on it. And his comment was like a post in and of itself. And it was very poignant. And, you know, he experienced his own loss um, about the same time frame, 6 months ago. And I'm like, that should be a post. And now we're going to collaborate on a post about grief. So
I
that's
believe Chris. I believe Christopher is watching. So Christopher, that one's for you, buddy. I thought I saw you. I thought I saw your name in there. So,
Baracus, I think is his last name.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So we didn't forget about you, my friend. So good job on that.
Yeah. So
But what
that's
I
kind of the cool thing about it is that
yeah.
you inspired me by sending me a poem or sending me a song that made me cry my eyes out. And again, don't be sorry. And
I'm
because
not.
look what happened. Then I wrote something about grief, and that helped me get through another, like, hey, it's not over. Now I realize that. And tomorrow is the 6 months,
Oh, wow.
6 month mark tomorrow, October
Hmm.
16th, because my dad died April 16th. And my husband and I met on uh December 16th, and then he oh my gosh, then he proposed to me on October 16th of 2021, and then we got married on February 16th, and then we had a party on July 23rd. But when I added up all the numbers, July 23rd, 2023, it added up to, guess what, 16.
My wife
So
would tell
it's
you,
kind of a magical number.
my wife would tell you to play the lottery with those numbers. Um,
I think I might
yeah,
have to.
yeah. What I really like about this community and what I really like about what you just said is you posted about your
About the
dad.
16.
Well, no, well, you posted about your dad. You
That's a
posted about your
tangent there.
dad. You
Mhm.
posted about your dad. I replied with the song. You did another post
Right.
after listening to that song. Beyond the Liminal then responds with their poem, and then Christopher has his reaction. And I've noticed this a lot in the literary space on Substack. When I write a poem, it could even be one of my micro poems. I mean, I've written poems that are 10 lines and I've written poems that are
Mm.
50 lines. I'll get the most thoughtful, sincere comments, and some of them will be from a literary perspective. Most of them will be from an emotional perspective. And I appreciate that so much.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
always it's always very humbling when somebody looks at your work and then not only do they look at it, but then they respond to it. And it's a feeling that never gets old. It's that feeling of validation
Right.
and a feeling of togetherness because it means we're in it together. We're
Yeah.
experiencing the human condition or human emotion. We're putting ourselves out there in a vulnerable way, and people resonate with that. People have asked me, Chris, how did you grow so fast on Substack? And I'm just being me. There's no secret. There's no what you see is what you get. So
Mhm.
I'm engaging with people. I'm reading 5, 6, 7, 8 posts at a clip. I might think, oh, I have 10 minutes. Let me scroll through. And all of a sudden it's 45 minutes later and
That
I've
happens to me all
responded
the
to
time.
yeah, and I've responded to 5 different posts. I've restacked 3 different quotes, you know, and it's so many different things that have inspired me on this platform.
Mhm.
One of my favorite writers on here that I have to give a shout out to, Meditations on Permafrost.
Huh.
He is an amazing writer. He writes just in a way that I could never do it myself. So, him and I have gone back and forth a little bit, and I want to interview him at some point. He's in the UK, but I want to interview him at some point and get his take on his like writing process because he will spend months writing an intricate piece that's historical and literary and
Oh,
incredible. I can't do that. I mean, I'm more, I feel it in waves and it just pours out of me and that's it.
right.
And it's
Right.
never like this deep dive into like history or research. So
Mhm.
I admire things like that. So I've been exposed to so many different people writing about so many different things. And with caregiving, I've seen your posts. I've seen other people who are giving caregiver resources to people who might need it right now.
Mm. Mhm.
There's this woman named Victoria. She reached out to me. She has a Substack called Carer Mentor, and she's literally just helping connect caregivers out of the goodness of
Oh,
her
wow.
heart.
That's
And
great.
she's literally like, here's resources for caregivers if you need a toolkit. It's
Mhm.
coming from a good place. So the people on here who are coming from a good place, there's just so many of them by leaps and bounds. And I think that's why we're having so much fun in the months that we've been on Substack.
And I saw a comment by Jesse saying, yes, it's magical. That's a good word for it.
Yeah, I agree with that because, I would have never connected. Here's another thing. So I'm trying to make my community chat a really nice place for people to get to know each other a little bit. And yeah, I'll do like a note sharing boost and everything. But one I did last week was just tell me where you're from and,
Oh, yeah.
what you're doing. And I had responses from Italy, South Africa,
Oh, wow.
Chicago, right? Uh, you know, all over the place. The UK,
Hmm.
the fact that, there's this group of people coming together from all different parts of the world just because they love to write and just because they love to express themselves. It's amazing. It's really humbling that people in Italy are reading some of my work and
Absolutely.
I'm reading some of theirs.
Hmm.
Shout out to Tanja. Tanja, I read your post today. It was awesome, and I restacked it. She's from Italy. So yeah, I mean, I just think we're in such a healthy place with, if you're going to be vulnerable on Substack.
Absolutely. Yeah. As a writer, that's kind of, I think, what makes a good writer is the vulnerability, the like, this is a real person that somebody can relate to. I
Yeah,
I think that's just the
yeah,
bottom line right there.
yeah, and I just before we wrap up, I just want to say a couple of extra things. The first one is, you know, my first post that I wrote was about Braden. It was called His One Smile. And it was kind of like my origin story, his warrior story. It recounts the hospitalization, everything that happened. But the thing that I always took away from that hospitalization was after he fought for his life and after that first 7 days when he was medically gonna be okay, there was just one singular moment that changed me forever. And it's the reason I'm here. And it's the reason I'm who I am right now, because it changed my life forever. And that is, we're talking about all these different like logistical things, what we're going to need when he comes home. Do we need an oxygen machine? Do we need a chest
Mhm.
vest? Do we need, special equipment? Whatever we need. And in the middle of this conversation, and we're just so tired and so bogged down by all of these logistics, what does he do? He sits up from the hospital bed on his own. Like he sits up, like he scoots up, and he just looks at us and he smiles.
Ah,
And that smile was, he might not be able to talk to me, right? But that smile was him telling me it's gonna be okay.
yeah.
It's gonna be okay. And I bawled my eyes out finally because I was the one like going to 5 a.m. rounds, making sure the doctors knew that we knew everything going on in a way of like, okay, if I'm ever gonna be a helicopter parent, it's gonna be because my son's in the hospital and they're determining his next steps.
Right.
Uh, so I finally just let all of that pain and sadness and emotion just flow out of me. And because of that smile, I honestly believe he saved me in that
Mm,
moment. And I'll never forget that. And from there, it snowballed into, well, this is my calling now to share that smile
right.
and that story with people who might be like I was in that moment and need that reassurance that it's going to be okay.
Right. Right. Absolutely. That's beautiful.
Thank
I
you.
read that post and I know a lot of people did.
Yeah, that was just it was crazy to do it the first one out of the gate and getting that kind of response. It was very overwhelming because I thought maybe one person would read it, like my parents, or
Right.
whoever. And then all of a sudden it had like 1,000 views, 100 comments, and somebody told me that's not normal. And I'm like,
Wow.
well, it's probably the picture of Braden smiling that did it because he's in a field of sunflowers with his red curls and he's just happy
Right.
as a clam. But you know what? If that's why, then that's even better because you know, he is literally an angel on this planet, and he was born to be our miracle. He was born to make us better people, and
Hmm.
everybody around him is better because of him. So if I could just take a little piece of that and share it with others, then it's all worth it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I I think that's all I really had in terms of, you know, what I really wanted to say. Do you have any other final thoughts or anything you want to say to people that have been, reading your work, or people that you just want to, share your appreciation for?
Well, first of all, anybody that reads my stuff, thank you very much for reading. If you comment, thanks for that too. I love to hear, what your thoughts are, how what I wrote affected you in some way. That's always wonderful. But if you don't, that's okay too. And I am just excited to be here and very grateful to you for inviting me to do this because I now realize that it's not that scary because I'm
Yeah,
just forgetting
no,
that anybody else is watching us and it's just you and me here. But
exactly.
thanks to everybody that is watching.
Yeah, no, I definitely appreciate everybody taking the time to listen to us and, have our first conversation together. And, I definitely want to do this more in the future, again, organically. I'm not really the type of person to be like, oh, let's do this like every single week at this time. But, I definitely want to go live with more people. There's one person I really want to shout out, Heidi Bonner, the rookie outdoor woman. Heidi, your writing is fantastic. And I am not a hiker, but I read every word that you write because you can write. She's funny. She's hilarious.
Yeah, I've read some of her stuff.
I definitely want to interview you, Heidi. You are the way you're putting your words together is better than I could ever put a tent pole together. So just a shout out there. But yeah, no, I am Chris B. Wright on Substack. Lynn is Lynn J. Broderick on Substack. And if you want, do you have an Instagram or any other places where people can find you?
Everything's the same, Lynn J. Broderick, except for TikTok, which I'm only there because my nephew is an aspiring singer. So I'm following 4 people. I have 6 followers, but that's Lynn J. Broderick 7, which pretty much has the same stuff as I have on Instagram. But, I'm there,
God.
but I don't do anything there other than put my own stuff there, like very occasionally.
All I know is that the next time I have bacon, I'm going to post and send a picture of it and link back to our conversation.
I'll do
So,
my pint of ice cream that I have every weekend with caramel sauce. Thank you very much.
oh, that sounds amazing.
Yes, I decided to go
And
back to dairy. I'm not like I have sensitivities to dairy and gluten. I went like completely gluten and dairy free. I was eating Oatly ice cream. And then my dad died. I'm like, I've got to just eat ice cream. I don't care. So what? You know what? You
life's
only
too
live once.
short.
It's one of my favorite things. I have to have it on my deathbed. That and popcorn if I still have my teeth.
I was just talking about this on a podcast I did yesterday. Someone asked me what is my favorite food to have at a diner at midnight, and I
Ah,
said
pop
a
bacon.
Belgian waffle with 2 scoops of ice cream.
Oh,
You, oh
okay.
yeah, that's something I did in college way too much, and I would totally do it again. No regrets.
There you go. Perfect.
All right. Well, Lynn, thank you so much. I
Yeah, thank
really
you, Chris.
appreciate it. I think this was so much fun. Thank you to
Yeah,
everybody who tuned in, and we'll see you again soon. This has been Typing It Real. Thanks a lot, guys.
thanks.